Hello students, today I want to explain the major assignments for week 3. You see I'm in the week 3 module in our course in Canvas, and the main task you have for this week is to revise and edit your Essay 1. If you recall, the Essay 1 first draft is worth 10 points. The final draft is worth 100 points, so you need to do your best work on this. I wanted to point out that as I evaluate your papers this week, I will be marking them using a set of editing symbols that you will find on the Essay 1 final draft assignment. So it's right here where my cursor is. Let me show you that page. These are common editing marks, so you're going to see these marks on your paper, and you need to know what they mean. For example, CS means comma splice. In the example sentence here, right here in the sentence, the student has put two complete sentences together using a comma, which is incorrect. So you can look at this page and especially look at the example sentences to see what each error means. If you have any questions about the marks that you see on your Essay 1 first draft, please don't hesitate to email me. Okay, so the other main task that you have to do this week is to complete a short writing assignment about the first 6 chapters of our book. And here's the assignment right here. The author of The Underground Railroad, Colson Whitehead, like Jonathan Swift, author of the famous book Gulliver's Travel, he made every title of every chapter a name of a person or a place that's in his book. So, for example, chapter 1 of The Underground Railroad is titled Ajari, and Ajari was the grandmother of the protagonist in our book. So here's your assignment. Simply write one sentence to define or describe each of the titles of the chapters 1 through 6. In other words, just do like this. Chapter 1, Ajari. The chapter is named after Ajari, who was the grandmother of the protagonist in our story. You really just need one sentence. I just want to see that you know what the titles of these chapters mean. So that's a very short assignment. Okay. The main instructional element in this week is the page called They Say, I Say. I've told you before that academic writing is characterized by reading a text and then writing about it. So the They Say, I Say model is a very popular way to do this. So in this model, what you do is basically you state what they say. That is the author or authors of the outside source. And then you follow up by saying, I say, your opinion about their idea. So it looks like a pretty simple structure, but I think it's an effective model for including ideas from outside sources in your own writing. So this method is graphically depicted as sort of like a quote sandwich. In other words, you have some kind of context on the top bun. Okay, you are telling the reader what's going on in the story, and then in the middle you are quoting or paraphrasing an idea from an outside source, and then the bottom bun is the I say, the analysis, what you think of what the authors say. Let me give you a template that might explain this a little better. So, for example, you might begin by saying that author X in his or her book or article, blah, 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 stated this. Okay? Now that would be one sentence that would introduce this idea that comes from an outside source. But that's not enough. You need at least one or two more sentences that explain what the writer meant by his point. Okay? And in this template, these sentences begin right here. More specifically, X argues that blank. Or, for example, he or she writes, quote, blank. And in this passage, the writer is suggesting blank. Okay? So this is kind of a long, drawn-out example, but I think it does illustrate that you need more than one sentence to tell an idea that comes from an outside source. You need at least two sentences. The next part of the model is your analysis. You're going to come back and say, in my view, the writer is wrong or right because blah, blah, blah. And then you explain your idea too. More specifically, I believe that blah, blah. Okay? So if you click on the link under the word templates, you'll see more examples of they say, I say paragraphs. I want you to try to use this, or at least think of this idea of when you use an idea from an outside source, you can't just introduce it, with just one sentence. You have to explain it, okay? So introduce the idea, explain what the writer or writer means, and then give your own opinion about their ideas, okay? So you can read this page in more detail. All right, so the other thing you need to do is look at a page called Revising and Editing Your Final Essay. This will give you some checklists for what you should look for when you are revising your paper. When you use the word revise, it means doing something to change the ideas, add, remove, move, or substitute ideas. Whereas edit means correct grammar or punctuation or spelling errors. One of the suggestions here is to ask a friend to read over your draft. You can ask a friend or perhaps a tutor in the Learning Lab at our college main campus or Learning Commons at the regional centers. Another set of eyes is fine for this project. You're not going to let somebody else write it for you, but you can let them help you edit it. Okay? All right, so you submit your Essay 1 final draft right here in the Essay 1 final draft assignment. Okay, now also in this week I have just given you a preview of Essay 2, and the topic is going to be about the novel we're reading, The Underground Railroad. And the question is basically, do you think the novel, which is a fictional text, is it a predominantly accurate or inaccurate account of slave life in the U.S.? Okay? So that's the main question. This is an argumentative essay, and we're going to learn more about argumentation in week 4. Okay, so if you go back to the week 3 module, how are you going to find out whether our novel, our fictional novel, is accurate or not? You have several texts to read this week. So click on the Week 3 Reading Assignments page, and you'll see there's a video called The Underground Railroad, a reading, 5 Daring Slave Escapes, another reading called Slavery in the American South, and a slideshow about slave catchers. So all of these texts are nonfiction. They depict what actually happened during this period. So keep that in mind when you're reading and viewing these texts, that you're going to be writing in Essay 2 about whether you think the Underground Railroad is predominantly accurate or inaccurate based on your knowledge of what really happened during the slavery period in the United States. Okay, and finally, one last task is to participate in a discussion. And let me show you the question for this week. We're going back even further in time, and we're looking at the Greek philosopher Aristotle. Aristotle had very strong views about society, and one of his views is that society is divided into 2 groups, slaves and non-slaves. and he believed that slavery was a good thing. He believed that it was a social necessity because it allowed the non-slaves, the masters, time to have leisure, to study, to think, because the masters, Aristotle said, were physically and mentally stronger than slaves. So this is a very strong opinion, and I want you to argue whether you agree with him or not. Okay? So you're going to give your opinion. Why not try to use the they say, I say model by just briefly stating what Aristotle's view was and then come back and analyze it by presenting your view. Okay, so you have a semi-busy week this week. If you have any questions about anything, please don't hesitate to email me. Thanks.